about ice cream and Corvettes. So there you go. There you go. I thought that was such a great story. That was such a great story from Tim Merchant. He's saying you need this link, goodlogic.locals.com after the show. I share it with subscribers, all my source material. I plan on doing that tonight after the show is over. So, yeah. And so it's goodlogic.locals.com.
Cause I don't give a fuck.
It is for the subscribers, but if you can't afford it,
you can go get it, bro. I'm a stack bricks up into what I want to.
I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things till I'm fucking buried in my grave.
Next story up. This one.
Boys and daddies.
You'll remember that kid, little kid, 6, 7.
All the kids under the age of 15.
Hey, why don't you have a seat right over there? Seat right over there.
Black on one side of his face, red on his other side of his face, and Deadspin did a whole article about how the Chiefs have to do something about the racism of their fans, and they showed the black half of his face, and basically, and the multicultural appropriation because he was wearing a big Indian headdress, and the appropriation of Indian culture when it turned out that his grandfather was actually happened to be, even though he's a Chiefs fan, his grandfather happened to be the chief of a tribe. Yeah, well, that story has had a happy development that I'm very eager to share with you all. I'm very, very eager to share with you all. Very, very eager to share with you all. Yes. You see, Brittany knew where I was going tonight. She knew where I was going. Your wish came true. Deadspin went under. Deadspin went under. That's correct. That's where I'm going with this. Before I get to this, I thought trading spouses was standard operating procedure for those degenerates in Congress. Sadly, you're not alone in thinking that, but he's like, yeah, I think he's might be a little bit choosier in saying Jill Biden in his thing. I don't know what he's saying. Did Joe be a ready trade wife with Ladybugs? I think Ladybug's probably more interested in Joe Biden. I don't know. But sports journalist who wrote blackface hit piece on 9-year-old Chiefs fan is now unemployed. If you're looking to hire Karen, which ironically was this dude's name, by all means, the man is available. There's a heartwarming ending to Deadspin's famously failed story of a 9-year-old. I was wrong. I said somewhere between 6 and 8. He was 9. Maybe back when the story came out, he was 8. That's got to be it. Story of a 9-year-old kid who was caught wearing blackface at a Chiefs game, obviously just team-colored face paint. The writer, Karen J. Phillips, is a black dude, is now unemployed. Greg Reed, former head writer for Tucker Carlson, shared the good news. There you go. I don't know what this is. Karen J. Phillips made his name for defaming a child. But even for that, he regularly defamed white people as racist. He typically targeted athletes in order to technically fit within Deadspin's mandate of sports coverage. Here's an article from Karen Phillips saying Ryan Tannehill's support for young Titans quarterbacks depends on if they're white. Woo! 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 Dude's crazy. Some of these racists are just unbelievable how like they see everything through that lens, and I guess 50 years ago when there was a lot of racism the other way, people were maybe they had the same sort of retarded type of perspectives. I don't know, but all of a sudden now that it's in vogue to be racist against white folks, it's like every perspective, every possible story. Let me figure out how I can try and twist this into a way that this is just some sort of type of oppression by the man. It's just, wow, dude, you're crazy. What the hell is wrong with you? Karen J. Phillips, who defamed child for wearing face paint, is now unemployed after the collapse of Deadspin. Oh. I should read this with the proper tone in the background here. In memoriam of Deadspin. Ray noted, adding, to appeal to future employers, he lists Pulitzer nominee on his bio. Being a Pulitzer nominee means nothing except that you paid a $7 fee to be considered. Pulitzer nominee. He nominated himself for a Pulitzer. Karen J. Phillips made his name for defaming a child, but even before that, he regularly defamed white people as racist, typically targeting athletes. It's positive development for journalism, including sports journalism, to see woke smear merchants like Phillips have to seek alternative employment, according to the Politics Brief. With any luck, he will have learned his lesson that weaponizing political narratives to attack innocent citizens is not what journalism is about. After the report about the poor young man, a little 9-year-old kid, cutest little 9-year-old kid. After the report, Phillips deleted his tweet after initially doubling down. When he had doubled down on him, we got a link here for it. This is what he had when he doubled down after people yelling at him, "You're crazy," and he had 2 colors of face paint, black and red, and you specifically waited till he turned to the right angle to take a picture of him just getting the black side because everyone knew that he had both colored paints on his face. He says, for the idiots in my mentions who are treating this as some harmless act because the other side of his face was painted red, I could make the argument that makes it even worse. You're all the ones who hate Mexicans but wear sombreros on Cinco. This is Karen Phillips. Dude had no idea. This journalist had no idea when he doubled down on this that yeah, he is Indian. So, whoops. So, well, that's not what I want it to be. That's where I want it to be. After defaming a little boy, Karen Phillips finally deleted the deranged tweet where he doubled down. The popular X account and wokeness posted, he must have lawyered up. Yeah, that's almost certainly what happened. The Deadspin story remained posted on X, however, was also deleted after being community noted into infamy. Conservative pundits blasted Deadspin after looking into the Deadspin hit piece. Yeah, the black Chiefs players look totally offended by this Native American kid's so-called blackface. I really hope Deadspin gets sued over this. They froze it when they took a picture of him with that profile. And that's how Karen Phillips framed it as the Chiefs really need to do something about their racism problem with kids wearing blackface and then doubling down the racism with their Indian headdresses. That's how this story came out. Horrific. What a terrible, terrible human being this guy is. Such a cute little kid. Here's the backstory. During CBS's broadcast of a Kansas City Chiefs game, the camera caught a glimpse of a young fan wearing Native American headdress and only showed the right half of his face, which was painted black. Instead of doing more research, woke sports media sites like Deadspin accused the kid of wearing blackface, a demeaning form of mockery of African Americans popular in the 30s, and have since failed to retract their accusations, despite the abundance of known facts flying in the face of their half-baked narrative. See how they did that? Half-baked, half-faced, half-baked, half. The main problem is that the left side of the child's face was painted red, plainly repping Chiefs colors, while the other half was painted black. Any thinking person knows that this would not be blackface. In addition, wearing a Native American headdress has nothing to do with blackface. It flat out makes no sense. Deadspin published a hit piece on a little kid for wearing face paint on his team colors. The popular X account and wokeness remarked. They even used a camera angle to make it look like he was wearing blackface. I hope he sues them into oblivion. It would be bad enough to just write an attack piece on a child while pushing an ignorant political agenda. But the writer of the piece, Karen Phillips, even doubled down. Lives a TikTok remark on the situation, saying, "Shame on you trying to ruin young child's life. Hope he sues you for defamation." How soon they forget, Sisman Thomas said while referring to Nicholas Sandman, who prevailed in his defamation lawsuit against corporate media. I hope the parents sue. Deadspin hit piece was inexcusable. Let's hope woke journalists think twice before writing half-cocked pieces again. But you need to explain how he's out of a job. You need to explain how he's out of a job. Yeah. Well, apparently Deadspin is no more. Earlier today, I'm going to have to share this with you from memory, what I read several hours back. Earlier today, Deadspin was bought out, and all their local journalists were told that they were fired and given less than 30 minutes to clean out their desks. So, along with all the other Deadspin, which, frankly, a hit piece merchant like Deadspin, which is so excited to promote crap journalists like Karen Phillips. I'm nothing should please America more. Then that's what happens. You go woke, you go broke. Adios. You all can sit there, pound the pavement, hit the unemployment line, sign up to try and collect your checks so that you can figure out how you can cover your monthly bills. And hopefully, if you ended up homeless, it would serve you right. Because you're a terrible human being. You ruin people's lives for no reason other than try to just find some way to stoke greater division in this country and any horrible thing that God decides to drop upon you. It seems fairly fitting. It's hard for me to think of something that would be like a not fitting calamity to occur to the likes of a Karen Phillips. I certainly am not advocating for anyone to go out there and directly harm him physically or in any other way. Definitely not saying that. I'm simply saying if a piano fell from the sky and landed on him in a cartoonish type of way, making that whole sound when it lands, and happened to strike some part of Karen Phillips, a lot of people would think that's karma. I think that's a little harsh. A lot of people would call that karma. Definitely, and I'm serious when I say I don't want anyone to harm it. But yeah. If the Lord works in mysterious ways, and for today, what we have is Karen Phillips unemployed. So good luck. But he was nominated for Pulitzer. He paid $75 and nominated himself for a Pulitzer. So yeah, obviously very skilled writer. Very, very skilled writer. He's really, really good at what he does. He's so good at what he does. All right. So that was the next story I wanted to cover with you. The interview is 26 minutes. Attorney for Special Prosecutor Strange's wife, Jocelyn Wade, you will laugh at the lies. Okay, so now that's not 4 hours. That's something that's more interesting to me. Why don't I see it from you? Why don't I see it? I was obviously looking at the wrong thing.
Damn, dog.
Give me a title, Sue. God bless you, Alec, and thank you. That'll work. Locals will work.
Damn it. 3-9.
Oh, it was on.
Is
I
mine
thought
the
it was
only one
on
that's
the
one, like,
attorney. That's why I was looking there. Okay.
Do what?
Let's go back to.
My
I want
hand
to
is
come
going
back to
like
this. Let's come back
super
to
slow.
this. Everyone's telling me I need to check this out.
I'm sorry, I was surprised I got internet.
When is this? This is a month ago. All right. Let's see what we got. I hope I don't regret this. You're all telling me I gotta check this out. I'm taking your word for it. I usually screen stuff beforehand. Let's see what we got.
There goes the room.
May still stand as of today.
As of today, we have a consent order incorporating two temporary
To somebody who's not an attorney, what
I'll give you a 12 hour.
So
From now.
Interview of Jocelyn Wade's attorney.
I'm not gonna
Jocelyn Wade, Nathan Wade's ex-wife. Her attorney.
No, we don't know nothing fancy yet.
it's in any case.
I'm saying my evidence in leading
set up
for
temporary financial arrangements and
Madalena and
unusual
one of
about
her
this
meetings.
situation is that it's been over 2 years, and we're just now.
They might have flushed.
Temporary.
Yeah, what kind of spade do you have, Doc?
This temporary financial arrangement came the day before Fannie was required to testify. All of a sudden, Nathan Wade started ponying up.
For his support for my client, who is not the earning spouse.
I did.
So, and that's because of how the case
Three.
is on. But it's a normal part.
I
of
still had a
process.
spade.
What's unusual is that it's taken this long.
You're a divorce attorney. How long have you worked in family law, in divorce law?
I've been in family law since 2000.
What are you eating, Doc?
Have you ever handled a case quite like this one?
What do you?
No. No. Well, as far as the facts go of the case, there's not a lot unusual about it. The circumstances surrounding the case, that's what makes it unusual.
Elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Well, you know,
I get emails from people. I'm sitting here in an interview talking to you about it. So that's
Who's got a full house?
Most cases I handle, people don't give a damn about who it is I'm representing.
when we started this case, when Joyce
Not a
approached
cunt?
me,
It might be a gun.
no idea about any of the
Might be a gun.
circumstances surrounding
Well, I'll be a
it. We
stray.
had no idea that
Mm,
Ethan Wade had
probably
accepted the
not.
position as a special prosecutor.
I'm going to tell you something. Nothing would matter more to me because, as you
I
know,
got one in my hand.
I am very proud of the fact that I'm a valued member of the media, and I think I'm overdue in being nominated for a Pulitzer. So I appreciate you going the extra mile in making sure that I receive the proper accreditation for the high level of reporting work that I do as a member of the
Really?
media.
All in.
So
All in.
I thank you.
I'll just come back as
Honestly, I'm a little
Tracy.
disappointed it took so long for someone to recognize that was important, but
I just come back as
Um,
Tracy.
I think a lot of people like this case.
You're
I
an
think a lot
asshole.
of people like this case. Let's see what we got here.
Prosecutor. So from my perspective, I was approaching it like any other divorce case. I had a wife who'd been married for almost 25 years to a husband.
Oh, that was you?
Apparently successful attorney.
I didn't even realize
There's
that was
cheating
you.
on him.
I thought that was
There's
Steve.
cheating on her.
We were going to undergo discovery and all the things we normally
My
do.
God.
Yeah, the name is like right below the numbers.
And questions weren't answered and things didn't
Yeah,
make
thanks,
sense.
guys.
That's when
What about the fact that he lied on his interrogatories? I hope she's asked about that.
it turned into
And now you go and do that?
You mentioned
Fuck.
that when you came onto the case, it was your understanding that you didn't know that Mr. Wade was working as a special prosecutor.
correct.
There have been people who've caught that. You mentioned it in some filings seeking additional discovery materials over the more than 2 years now that this case has been proceeding. And there have been
And to be clear, divorce proceedings commenced the day after he was hired as a special prosecutor. So throughout these divorce proceedings, he has been a special prosecutor.
folks who've wondered how that could be. So I just want to put it to you, why didn't you
No.
know that
Yeah,
Mr. Wade was a special prosecutor until at least somewhat fairly
Okay.
far along in the process?
Well, I can tell
Damn
you
it.
that to the extent that it was public knowledge, it wasn't in any public circle that I was a
You
part
felt
of.
sorry
or
for her.
Joyce was a part of.
Yeah.
And we did not.
Oh, don't feel
actually
sorry for
learn
me.
That he was
Please
a
don't.
special prosecutor until around
Ever.
the time that the indictments came out.
I'll come back.
And in discovery, we asked
Really?
about sources of income with specificity, and the answer
still
that
come
we
back.
received repeatedly was Nathan J. Wade, PC. So we didn't have
Which is not any kind of answer at all.
any information, objective information that would tell us anything about that until it became a source of public information. And that's when we started down the hole of trying to get information with regard to his income. Those were the things that weren't making sense. He didn't seem to have very much in the way of income, but he seemed to have a lot of money at his disposal.
Didn't have much in the way of income before he was hired by Fannie. Interesting. Successful career, successful practice. Nathan Wade. Oh, he a judge for 12 years. That's what I heard in a church speech. I don't hear many church speeches. I heard one church speech which was talking about how he was such a successful black man, successful, smart, experienced black attorney. That's what I remember hearing that describing Nathan Wade, but apparently when he's talking to his ex, he's like, I ain't got no money. I ain't got no money.
And when we learned this, that's when we started doing subpoenas to Fulton County and open records requests to figure out what on earth is going on.
You mentioned something that I want to kind of circle back on, open records requests and the subpoena. I think the divorce case really got dragged into the national spotlight when you subpoenaed Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis to sit for a deposition in this case. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And let's start here. DA Willis tried to quash that subpoena. There was a hearing. The judge stayed the subpoena at the time. Before that hearing, DA Willis filed a motion in response trying to quash the subpoena. And she wrote that your client was using the legal process to harass and embarrass the district attorney. And I'm quoting here, she said in her filing, doing so was obstructing and interfering with an ongoing criminal prosecution. What did you make of that when you read it in her filing?
I was astounded.
Hey, buddy.
And so in that same year, the mentor-mentee program.
That
So her
type of
core was,
assertion
how do I get
against
privileged
an
with the
individual,
underprivileged?
another
And that's
member
been
of the
her core
bar.
of how she's
Do you
designed.
not
what
know
she
who
does.
she
And
is?
this government recognition of startup culture initiative and policy for startup, is it enough? Do you think it's enough?
It has to evolve. There can be, you can't write all the entire book on one single day. Every book has to be read chapter by chapter. If you read a whole book on one thing, I challenge anyone to remember what 3 things that came out, unless it's a fictional movie. So I think it's an evolved process. You know, there's ease of doing business, there's aspiration, there's ability to be able to call. So I think there's a fair amount of progress that's made there. Is it still challenging to do business in India? Of course it is. But in a pragmatic manner, it can't change overnight because the ecosystem won't allow you to be without any rules and regulations. There'll be complete chaos. So a lot of people tell me, you know, here it's tough to do business. And I'm saying, sure, go to the United States and try and do business there. It might be 10 times more difficult.
Exactly.
Because it's such a competitive environment. Are you ready for that level of competition, for that level of complete free market? So sometimes your moat is a level of complication.
So which is your most inspiring startup?
I guess the one that I'm going to maybe start later on. I think it's like, which has been my biggest failure. I think it's yet to come.
So how do you judge the success of any business?
Well, firstly, I would judge it from my own happiness, my own sense of pride, my own sense of tanking up my conviction. And what I felt I did. Because finally, at the end of the day, you need to be your own judge. Sure, wealth creation is an important part. So your stakeholders are the team and the people. So to me, when I meet people today and said, who come and say, hey, when we worked with you, you gave us the toughest years, but actually those are the best years of my life. I think that's successful, that you ran an organization where people felt the high level of ownership. 2, that you made an impact because you were communicating in various forms, whether it was television or movies or animation. And then the third one is, there was wealth creation that came along the way. And I think now in education and with Upgrad, that's the similar thought process.
So how much do you keep involved with your startup, which has become a success?
Well, at this moment, my focus is to disrupt the learning, skilling, and workforce development education space with Upgrad. The not-for-profit has been actually a lifelong commitment. And some people play golf. I make movies.
Today's generation is restless. That doesn't mean that your generation, and I'm maybe slightly older than you, we were not restless. But I've done 540 films, and out of which I think I must have got script for 40 films. The rest of them were narrated to us. You must be getting a lot of scripts. How do you choose that this is the film I'm going to make?
So today, I think with RSVP as compared to UTV, it's a passion and a hobby versus at that time,
Doc, tell Jody to get in here.
Because there were shareholders and one. So when you're doing something for a business, I think 60% of the things you do because you have to do them and 40% because you want to.
Okay, never mind.
And I think when it's a passion or a hobby, it should be 99% of the time something you want to do and maybe 1% what you have to do. So to me, I look at scripts in a way of what I really want to do. Is it a gem from my point of view? Is it a story I do want to tell? Is it something that I'm personally involved with? I'm not taking anybody else's money. It is that accountability. It is what I want to do in their particular context.
What are his thoughts on great Indian brain, how to reverse it?
In the past, the context was your tomorrow was better outside of India than inside of India. Today, everyone knows your tomorrow is better, but it's only better because it's inside of India. And I think, therefore, there's no brain drain. Now, let's not say that if somebody has an aspiration to go and work abroad for 3 years, that's bad. Actually, that's good. If you had an experience with 2 Indian movies and then with a Hollywood movie, you come back richer with your experience.
I totally agree with you.
That will actually benefit what you're doing here in television or in film.
Trippy
The same
Sevens.
way, When people go abroad to study, they're learning a very different sense of
One of the games we played,
I know we want to be the Vishwaguru of the world, and we should be. But at the same time,
the
there's nothing
flop
wrong.
was
We're
trip 8s
1.4
and then
billion,
trip
we're
10s, a
1/7 of the
different
world's
hand.
population. We definitely
crazy.
can't be
Yeah, like
insulated.
two.
So I would urge people that there's nothing wrong in being across the world. But the brain drain is where you're losing, and it's a leak. The faucet is leaking. The faucet is not leaking. The faucet
Oh,
is
yeah,
no
the
longer
fourth
leaking. People are
seven.
coming back. They know that if they want their tomorrow to be better, it'll happen in India.
I totally agree with you when you say that people who go abroad and then when they come back, they come as a richer person. I was in US doing some work. When I came back, I became a better actor because I saw competition. I saw other people doing that.
But you also saw discipline. You saw bigness of ideas.
Yes.
You saw,
yes.
Where your thinking completely opened up.
I still wonder that there was a certain sense of innocence when we were rural-dominated country. Now the gap is becoming smaller. When I say innocence, I mean there's a sense of wonder. Now there's no sense of wonder. You have one Google thing and you press it and it gets you information. But information does not necessarily translate into knowledge.
What are you doing?
Knowledge comes with living.
Yes. And knowledge does not translate into smartness either.
Exactly. Exactly. So you do a lot of work in rural areas. What is it that you're actually empowering them for?
If you have the raw
I'm
flesh,
raising
you gotta
aspirations
show
of
it.
whatever I am,
Yes.
and I'm empowering them to be self-independent. I think the crux in rural India today, Anupam, is that they don't feel in control of their destiny. Because if you're used to grants and if you can't control the life, when I go to the schools there, we take it for granted that in our class 9, somebody always used to give us, what do you want to do when you grow up? That's not a question is being asked in rural India. One of our most successful programs in our schools, in our 1,200 schools, was opening a library. The attendance went up by almost 20% in schools.
Was that on the flop?
Because we opened that library. It was for the kids, by the
I was
kids.
missing the
They were
king
managing
for the
it.
straight.
Before that, the library was a cupboard with a lock and a key in the
You almost had a
office and
straight.
possible book
You
rental.
talked me
that
out
you
of
could
it. I
go
didn't see the
sit
last
on and
card.
come back. And the second one was our career
Straight
counseling
flush.
program. The question
Whatever
is,
the hell
what
it
do
was.
you do when you grow up?
Had
What
a
do you want
4.
to do when you grow up? So outside of the normal fireman, policeman, Indian government, suddenly you got from 4 choices to 40 choices. Their parents didn't have that luxury. So they're not going to ask them that question because they know that even if the person says, I want to do this, they may not be able to afford it. So to me, that transformation is what is needed. Of course, we need water and we need sanitation. Of course, we need schools. Of course, we need solar power. But the soft aspect is going to go 10 times harder, faster. And one of the things we do is we have a village development committee. So we go into a village and we start that. And that is something we learned the hard way. For the first 3 years, we made targets. They were our targets, but they were not their targets. And there was a complete gap. When we got them, they make a 5-year plan. Where do they see their village over the next 5 years? Where do they see their lives? Where do they see their own livelihood? If I can raise their livelihood 4x from what they are today, they will feel I'm independent, I'm not dependent. And when the man or the woman of the house feels that, I think it's a massive transformation.
How much have books made a difference to your life or your thinking?
My wife is a voracious leader, so we have 2 large libraries in the house, and everyone says, wow, and in Zoom calls, everyone says, lovely library, and I keep saying, that's not my wealth of knowledge, that's hers. But for me, books have been chapters. I'm a nuggets kind of person. If I'm having a conversation, the main point is when you have a 1-hour conversation, if you can take 2 things away from it, that's huge. Most people think, I wasn't focused. But the fact of the matter is you need to take 2 things. So I've been a chapters of books person.
Speaking of mob bosses, though, I think I'm related
you
to
wrote
one.
a whole book, not only chapters.
Yeah.
What prompted you to write your book?
So the first one that I wrote, Dream With Your Eyes Open, and I think that was because I was at that crossroad where I was
He was
starting
around in like
and I
the
was meeting a lot of entrepreneurs.
20s and 30s in Chicago and
on
shit.
my own journey, but they were at the similar crossroads. And failure, more than failure, fear of failure was coming up. And I said, some things have changed, but some things just haven't changed. So to me, the book was more about talking about failures on an ongoing basis, because I think failures need to be evangelized. Media evangelizes success or negative stories, whichever way you look at that. Here, you need to evangelize failure. People don't talk about it proudly. And I think, what you said, where you went to the US and did that. Their failure is evangelized, meaning people look up to that. If you've done 3 failures,
I do a play on my failures called Kuch Bhi Ho Sakta Hai, my autobiography.
Yeah. There, if you've got 3
Why?
failures,
Why do you do
there's a
that?
better chance of you getting funded because people have known that you've actually
tried.
Yeah,
No,
you've got it.
don't.
Now there's a lot
If
more
those
experience. It's an
cards-
asset side of the balance sheet. For a lot of people, they think it's in the liability side of your balance sheet. And I think, to me, that book was about communicating that.
And your second book?
The second book was because I was inspired now that I was getting into skilling and upgrad. And there I do webinars, talk to young learners, midterm learners. Almost everyone is at a crossroad most of their lives.
Starting to sound like
So
boss
it was
buddy.
about the fact that
Buddy.
everyone is so obsessed with the hard skills of life that we forget the soft skills.
Oh.
Of life. I'm a product of soft skills. I did my Bachelor of Commerce and then I didn't do much. I didn't have the self-confidence, but I earned it. I did elocution and debates and drama in school surreptitiously. That gave me the level of confidence
Ohio
to sit
State
here and
game
have this
played the other night.
conversation with you 30 years later.
Yeah.
See, you can take away, you can have setbacks in life, you can have failures, you can have a 0 bank balance, you can
You
go
left rather
bankrupt.
quick.
But nobody can take away your level of confidence and your ability and your skills. You can't be bankrupt on what you've learned in life through failure. So that book was about that.
So if you were to describe your life and you were to give it a title, what will be the title?
All glory is fleeting.
It's a great title.
Yeah. I get criticized a lot, says I don't celebrate enough, And I'm saying, yeah, because actually life is a little bit about that. And if you treat it in that manner, you'll always be curious. You'll always have your feet on the ground. You'll always dream with your eyes open, not closed. And you'll be practical.
Well, as long as people like you are there, there is a lot of inspiration around. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure
This was
talking to you.
fantastic. Really.
How wonderful, how wonderful. I learned so many things from you today. Thank you, Ronnie Scrola, and thank you for watching. Join me next week for another intimate yet engaging debate, and let's talk Bharat with Anupam Kher.
At the end of the 18th century, Great Britain began to conquer and colonize Australia. From the very beginning of the British penetration to the continent, natives were subjected to severe violence and deliberate extirpation. According to modern historians, in the first 140 years, there were at least 270 massacres of local people. Any resistance to the British was answered with doubled cruelty.
Walk, why are you still
Hundreds
here?
of natives were killed for the murder of
You
one
can't kick
settler.
me out.
Indigenous Australians were not considered complete people. No wild beast of the forest was ever hunted down with such unsparing perseverance as they are. Men, women, and children are shot whenever they can be met with. Squatter Henry Myrick wrote in a letter to his family in England
Question
in
is, why are you
1846, Australia's past is
Not much
rightly
chips.
described as
Not
bloodsoaked
for
and
long, buddy.
racist. If at the beginning of colonization there were 1.5 million indigenous people living on the
One of
continent,
these
then
guys will
by
take
the
it from
beginning
you.
of the 20th century, their number had increased to 100,000 people, despite the indisputable historical facts. The problem of full recognition of the crimes of white Australians against Aborigines has not been resolved so far.
Also Cal, good evening, brother. Mr. Eminem, you take care of yourself, brother. Take care. God bless you once again. You and your family.
We need to counter the
Take care. Be
Russian
safe out there when you cop watch. Be safe.
narrative. Als Teil der Sanktionen gegen Russland gehen die westlichen Länder gegen russische Auslandssender
It
vor.
sounds kind of crazy marketing, but it's delicious. And
Écoutez, monsieur, c'est pas à vous de décider de qui est journaliste ou pas dans ce pays. On est en France, quoi. C'est pas possible.
you have known or hanged out with
Hey, buddy.
We will ban in the European Union
Anybody find
media
video?
machine. The state owned Russia Today and Sputnik.
RT, Sputnik, even our video agency, roughly all banned on YouTube.
How's it going, Doc? Also Cal, how's it going, brother?
Et merci à vous tous pour votre fidélité et votre soutien.
Mr. Bucky, it's delicious, Mr. Bucky. You're not gonna, you think you're gonna taste it, it doesn't work like that. I don't know if whenever I meet you, I could even, I invite you to go eat. but real Mexican cuisine, not
The fourth US Abrams tank is destroyed by Russian troops in Ukraine while a British Challenger gets stuck in the mud in training. It's all captured by a British tabloid.
And the tank has just sunk in, slid in, and now they're waiting for a recovery vehicle.
Slovakia's defense minister urges the West to help Ukrainian men of draft age return home and join their army, as instead of sending NATO troops to fight for Kiev.
Hey Doc, how you been, sir?
And India won't tweak its policies to suit US electric car makers. The country's tariff rules will aim to attract vehicle manufacturers from all over the world.
I think you're live right now. Yes, guys, everything is
It's just gone 7 a.m. here in Moscow. This is RT International. I'm Peter Scott with the latest world news.
That's right. What the French?
Now, the Russian Defense Ministry has said that a fourth US Abrams tank has been destroyed on the front line of Donbass. Footage online appears to show remains of the vehicle, and reports suggest it was destroyed in the Donetsk region. The Russian Defense Ministry also said a Czech-made Vampire combat vehicle and 2 French-made Caesar self-propelled artillery units were also destroyed.
Hold. What do you have,
Meanwhile, here's a British Challenger tank that got bogged down while performing a training.
was mean as a snake. Jordan shoes at the night out. Okay, you're taking a ball from my
You didn't show.
We've seen the
I didn't have to. I didn't have to tell you either.
Ryan's fucking suit bullshit.
Nope. Sorry. It wasn't in there.
It's been proving problematic for it in this war.
Let's start being like Brad. How
you been, bro?
It's been one of the messages that the Ukrainian tank crews have given us since we got here. Is that
Okay, chip leader.
this Challenger is formidably
Oh wait, there's a
precise.
Right there.
Actually, they've had real problems with it here in Ukraine because of its mobility, and they just said it's
You're extra amusing
it's
tonight, aren't you?
underpowered, and it keeps getting
You're extra.
stuck. You can see that's exactly
Media
what
and our brother
has happened here. The belly of the tank is on the mud. We're trying to cross a small ditch, really, a few meters wide, but it's clearly
But the trap has got clubs.
very
Nice to see you,
soggy,
bro. Don't be
and
a
the tank
stranger,
has just sunk in, slid in, and now they're waiting for a recovery vehicle.
Good citizen.
Meanwhile, the NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has distanced himself from the French President Emmanuel Macron's suggestion that Western allies should not rule out deploying troops to Ukraine. Stoltenberg said that such a move by individual members would impact the alliance as a whole. A number of countries have said that they are not considering sending ground troops to Ukraine, and the NATO chief reiterated those sentiments.
NATO has no plans to send troops to Ukraine, and NATO is not party to the conflict, nor are NATO allies. I think it is important that we consult and that we have a common approach
Casey
to
wants to
these
come in.
important
She got
topics
like
because they matter for all
less
of
than a
us.
minute to come in.
Well, the Slovak defense minister has offered his own solution to avoid sending NATO troops to
Oh
Ukraine.
man,
He suggested that
this
Kiev's
was a
Western
shitty
allies should help
hand to
Ukraine
get
men
my
of draft age return home to join the country's army.
Nothing would help the Ukrainian army more than the return of the Ukrainian men of draft age, capable of fighting in the war. They are sufficiently patriotic, so we have to motivate them and provide resources to these young men who are able to serve in the Ukrainian army to
No, not us. Just bring Tracy in.
Nice to hear that, JD.
go back and do so. It's surely better
I'm gonna bring.
Good to see you, Tapatillos. You look
than sending our own soldiers
Yeah,
there.
I got
have the ammunition that they need
Yeah.
to protect
Tracy's
themselves,
coming in.
that the
Uh-uh.
NATO as a bloc is not currently prepared militarily to defend itself if it needed to. I think it's pretty absurd. I kind of feel as though this may be somewhat bluff. I feel as though the people in power recognize that their Ukraine project is collapsing, and they may be trying to bluff.
Oh yeah, that's the new one.
Russia a bit. They may be trying to pretend as though they're ready to militarily engage, so that will give them a little bit of leverage when it comes to negotiating some kind of an end. Ukraine does not have the wherewithal to maintain the fight, and we're seeing that happen bit by now that the political collapse seems has been imminent for a while, and by imminent I don't mean within a day, but I do mean within months. That the support even in Ukraine for the conflict is waning. Here in the United States, as you probably know, I'm here. I work in Washington D.C. every day. I can tell you that the support for this conflict is significantly decreased. In fact, the Biden administration can't even get money for Ukraine anymore. So certainly they're not going to be in a position to get to send troops or to get kinetically involved in this thing.
I got a spoon for you, Tony.
Staying with the war in Ukraine, the 20 Days in Mariupol documentary by a Ukrainian filmmaker won an Oscar on Sunday. The footage of a pregnant woman, Mariana Vishnevskaya, was exposed as misleading last year. RT correspondent Steve Sweeney broke down the controversy. My colleague Nikki Aaron.
Sunday saw the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. The red carpet was rolled out for the stars of the silver screen. But the least surprising, perhaps, victory of the night was to the Ukrainian documentary 20 Days in Mariupol. Now, again, this has caused some degree of controversy because of the nature of the documentary. Let's remind ourselves with a clip of the film.
Ruthless.
Thanks, buddy.
GG. Los Animas County, Colorado, where this guy gets pulled over, and then his father pulls up behind in a white pickup truck and tries to wait.
Thank you for your service.
What's the problem is? What's the problem? Yeah, you're following too closely. Can't you see the roads are icy? You see me slowing down, and you're still coming up behind me.
Do you need to be behind this traffic stop? Yeah, I do. Why? It's my son right there. He was following me. Okay, he's on the
I
traffic
was thinking
stop, so you don't
today.
need to be behind it.
I got a fight to get my Social Security, but they're giving me fucking illegal.
That's what we get paid to do.
$5,000 a month.
People over. You don't get paid to be a and you don't either. Okay, I don't got to put up with your bull. Okay, I asked you a simple question.
No, I don't. I'm waiting on my son. He's
Yeah, but I didn't catch it till last night. I knew they were giving them money. I just.
Stay! Hey! Stop the get out the car! Get out the car! Get out the car!
But he gets tased in the face. Well, there's been a huge final update in that case. There has now been a settlement of the civil lawsuit for $1.5 million. Yeah, so the father here, Kenneth Espinosa,
Hey, watching that one, dog.
ended up getting $1.5 million in a settlement for getting tased in the face. Now, why so much? Well, the main officer involved here, a guy named True.
Yeah, I think he got some money out of it.
Had a history. In
or
fact,
million too.
Just 12 days before he arrested Mr. Espinosa,
What happened?
the county had settled a different federal lawsuit alleging that Trujillo and
I thought it was 1.2, but
used excessive force.
either way.
They forcibly arrested a deaf woman in a hospital where she was recovering from a suicide attempt. The deputies have been called to the hospital not for an alleged crime, but just to transport her for treatment. But this incident all began when Officer Noel, also involved in that other event, pulled over Mr. Espinosa's son for following him too closely.
Windows frozen. Okay, what's up? Deputy Noel with the sheriff's office. Let me get your driver's license ready. Hold that dog.
What, Erie County, a while ago?
The problem is? What's the problem? Yeah, you're following too closely. Can't you see the roads are icy? You see me slowing down, and you're still coming up behind me.
Long Island and
there's no reason for you to be doing that.
Here's the deal. They were arguing the other night.
I should be driving. Okay, I'm in
I
a
guess they let us
all right, but that doesn't give you the right to follow a marked patrol car close like that. What if I had to
drunk drivers?
I know there's ice there. That's why I was cruising, so I don't slip.
And here's the deal with Harley.
There's no reason for you to be that close behind a marked patrol car.
Long Island,
I just had a different opinion.
Kenneth Espinosa had been
Long
going
Island's
to the
nice
same
guy,
place
but
that
he's
his son
a
was driving
statist.
to. When he saw that his son was pulled over, he also pulled over to wait and to watch. But the deputies approached. They told him to leave.
I think it was
he initially refused to leave, but then they told him to leave. But then they told him not to leave. And that's when they tased him in the face.
Oh, that was different. Joe Cool got pissed because they started talking about the flying auditor come in and said something about the legals. I don't remember. And Joe
Do you need to be
brought
behind this
in
traffic
politics.
stop?
And
Why?
I don't remember.
Okay, he's on a traffic stop, though. You don't need to be behind it.
Ascertained so much dumbass shit. I don't know.
We just don't like when people pull in behind us. I don't like when they pull my car. That's what we get paid
They just
to pull people over. You don't get paid an asshole. You don't
probably about the time you hit the big one with the
Okay, I
block.
asked you a simple
They
question.
can't cut
Okay.
it.
In fact, you need to leave now, or you're going to get charged. It's that easy. I'm recording too. I asked you a simple question. If you have a shitty attitude, that's your problem.
I think it's because he got busted in the
Hold on a second, okay?
January
You rolled
6th
your
thing.
window up when I walked up, okay? So I'm
Cops
not
don't
on
want
your
to
window, okay? You were not.
Cops don't want to bring him in because the feds will look at him.
No, right now. Don't need to do anything. You got 5 seconds to leave, okay? There's no reason for you to be behind this traffic stop. No reason, okay? No reason. Okay?
January
No
6th.
reason. Do I not pay? Okay? And do you always stop behind cops when they pull
Yeah, that's
people over?
pretty good.
Okay, you don't need to be here.
Insurrection
You
or
don't need
whatever
to be
the hell it
here,
was.
okay? You need to go. No, I don't. I'm waiting on my son. He's my right back in Wilson. Leave. Leave.
Insurrection.
That's the part.
Stay. Stay.
Okay,
Hey,
buddy.
Stop the get out the car. Get out the car. Get out the car. Get out the car. What are you gonna do? You gonna SD4, give me the radio. Get out the car. Get out the car. Get out the car. Get out the car. Get out the car.
The footage then shows the father being tased multiple times, including while he was handcuffed.
You do what you're told, all right? You think it's okay just to roll up on traffic stop? No, not do what you're told. Now you go to jail. Well, what do you want done with your original guy?
He's gonna get a citation. He's staying there. That's my original stuff.
Okay. What do you want from us? What can we do to help?
We should be good.
Okay.
I got Med coming to check him out.
Okay. All right. If you guys are good with us.
All right.
Yep. You guys are good with us.
I don't believe that this was known at the time that I did my first video on this, but according to the Denver Post, investigations into this incident showed that there was a supervisor here in the sheriff's department.
What time is it in Kiwi land for that?
Steven. I'm not sure how in the world you pronounce that.
Shit.
That he signed off on a use of force
11-13 here
on Espinosa in the face. That he signed off on this report without even reviewing the case.
That's right.
Or even
3.5 weeks time, it'll be 4:15.
An independent report from the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office recommended a criminal investigation into Trujillo and Noel. Now, when this lawsuit kicked off, it exposed Trujillo's criminal history.
Our clocks go back
protection orders
next
were
month.
busted against him. Now, when I see that, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot.
We just had our time change yesterday.
Protection order requested. Anybody can request those. I'm assuming these are like domestic violence protective orders. Anybody can request those, and they're fairly easily granted.
Yeah.
Also, it says that they were all from the same like crazy person or something.
So now are you saying it's mountain time or what?
I don't know.
Also,
It's
Trujillo has
10:30
been
or
convicted
10:15
of
here.
several criminal charges between 1997 and 2009 in Los Angeles County.
Your mountain time now.
Harassment and
Also,
also, in case I didn't mention it before, Mr. Espinosa did face several charges in connection with this incident, but the prosecutors later wisely dropped all of the
Doc
charges.
looked like he's smiling.
So $1.5 million. I've seen some people saying, well, it should have been.
No, he's just
well,
smiling.
these sorts of cases, remember, you have qualified immunity. Any $1.5 million settlement and a lawsuit against the government for police tasing somebody.
His mouth didn't even move.
Fantastic result. And why was it a fantastic result here? Well, you had everything that I just listed about this police officer's background. Why is that important? Because generally in Section 1983 cases, the reality is we have to sue the individual police officer. So what that means is when it comes time for trial, you have the police officer sitting there as a defendant, not like the mayor or the sheriff of a county or the county commissioners. And the jurors are not told that the county or the city is going to pay whatever judgment they award. So here, where you have a history of misconduct and you have the county really being on notice that this guy has passed criminal charges, has passed complaints of excessive force, perhaps there was a great Monell claim here, which is the exception where you can sue the county or the city, not the state, because of the 11th Amendment, but you can sue the county or the city for like a pattern or practice of constitutional
Doc, are you
violation.
Chinese?
And that could just include having this guy out
Chinese
there
eyes.
pulling people over and
It's close.
confronting citizens with a badge when they knew or should have known that he was a bad guy, that he had done this before and was likely to do it again. And I think that may have played a part here, because then the jurors know that the county itself is on the hook here, and that tends to increase verdict amounts. So that may have been a big part of that. Another important thing that we look for here as civil rights lawyers in cases like this, a victim, Mr. Espinoza, who was completely innocent. He wasn't suspected of having committed any crime whatsoever. He had a perfectly reasonable explanation to be where he was. He was traveling, going to the same place as his son. He stopped and observed the traffic stop, which he had every right to do. He wasn't even close. He parked way back. He wasn't causing these police officers any problem at all. So you have a bad cop. You have a completely innocent plaintiff. And then you have a jurisdiction, Colorado, where there have been large jury verdict awards against police officers, such as one.
What up? Have you seen Heather anywhere?
Raid with the grandma. So
I saw a post this morning in Discord, but apart from that, no, I haven't talked to her for quite a while.
At the Civil Rights Lawyer.
I know that she's got a lot of family things going on.
Please use this submission.
But that's about it.
Please also follow me on Twitter at John Bryan ESQ or on Facebook at the John H. Bryan Attorney at Law page. Remember, freedom is scary. Deal with it.
From beatings, there are each and every released prisoners tell stories about raids on the cells just in order to beat the prisoners, about being beaten
Shelley's on
from
camera.
one place to another. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo, but what I can say is that conditions in Israeli prisons amount to torture.
No man, woman, or child should be spared in Gaza. That's the message of one Jewish rabbi who called on Israeli people not to spare a soul in the so-called Holy War.
The basic rule we have when fighting in the Holy War, in this case in Gaza,
You
is
already
the
think from
doctrine, do
JC
not
News
spare
now?
any soul. And the logic of this is very clear. If
No.
you don't kill them, they will try to kill you. Today's saboteurs are the children of the previous war whom we kept alive. And in reality,
There's a few
it is
people
the
that are
women who create
MIA.
the terrorists. There's no such thing called an innocent creature.
Nope.
The elderly man is capable of carrying a rifle and
You
shooting.
needed a 5 and 9 or a
Children
club.
too should be killed.
The same thing, the same thing. Today he is a child and tomorrow a fighter. Therefore, you must not stop.
It might be phrased more delicately, and at times it would be, more diplomatic. But by and
Damn,
large,
I've got some shit.
Israeli public opinion, unfortunately,
Some good shit.
supports Israel's war
Should have took
on Gaza.
Should have took it all when you could have.
And Israeli society is infected with genocidal discourse. Now, I'm not certain if an investigation into incitement to genocide was opened against Rabbi Mali. He is an extremist, but like I said, it's not only him, and it's not only the so-called extremists. This is a very common perception within Israeli society, and a very dominant discourse.
What the fuck?
And we've seen soldiers say the same thing. Soldiers who aren't just saying what needs to be done, but soldiers recording themselves, testifying to have killed people, to have carried out atrocious war crimes against humanity, and we see Israeli policy implemented on the ground
In other news, Russia, Iran and China will hold joint maritime security drills in the Gulf of Oman involving both warships and aircraft. Here's RT's Yusuf Jalali with more details.
Iran has called it an epitome of multipolarity in the military domain. In a monumental display of naval prowess, Iran, Russia, and China are set to embark on an expansive naval drill encompassing a vast 17,000 square kilometer expanse across the Persian Gulf, the Sea of Oman, and the northern reaches of the Indian Ocean. Dubbed Maritime Security Belt 2024, this exercise will witness the convergence of surface and aerial units from the trio, aiming to showcase their maritime capabilities while fortifying security cooperation within the region. It's the fifth iteration of such a large-scale collaboration among the three navies, which will see
Turtle Boy got a harassment order against fucking
Iran Navy,
Kate
along
Peters.
with naval assets.
Yeah, I can see the video in front of me. He got granted the prevention order, harassment order.
Also attend without deploying naval equipment.
Chile can't get shit.
Guys include safeguarding the international shipping lanes.
I was watching the conversation about it today in Discord and Kate's server. Fucking hilarious.
Oh, man.
Oil transit through critical choke points like the Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, and Malacca Straits, together forming what's known as the Golden Triangle of global trade. Iran has emphasized that the presence of extraterritorial forces like the U.S. Navy only serves to destabilize the region, saying it's up to the regional states to shoulder the responsibility of ensuring the security of regional waterways. And this sentiment is poised to resonate strongly during the upcoming trilateral drill, underscoring a message of regional autonomy and stability.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a law allowing the use of digital financial assets in international trade. Now, it permits the DFAs to be used as a form of payment for international transfers, challenging the West's dominance of global payments structures such as SWIFT. Here's RT contributor Chris Ems with an explanation of what that means.
The major change it makes is it really allows government institutions in Russia and Russian companies to freely use other and alternative payment methods in order to conduct their transfers. As we know, Russia was cut off, 2 years ago from the global financial system. Most Russian banks have the inability to use payment systems such as SWIFT or any other real payment method of moving money in and out of the country. Now, with this law passing, it means that other methods can be used, such as cryptocurrencies, for example, which is what I'm a strong advocate of, to move money instantly from one country to another. So it's quite significant, really, because it basically breaks down all of the barriers that the Russian economy had to trade in terms of payments. So how that works, essentially, is if we're using alternative payment methods, such as cryptocurrencies, for example, or sovereign-based coins like the digital Russian ruble, for example, what that does is those systems are, in a sense, a black box to other nations from seeing those transactions. For example, if we were to perform a SWIFT transfer, so if I was to send you rubles or dollars using SWIFT, it's very, very probable that the United States, for example, would be able to see all of those transaction flows, to see who I'm paying and who is being paid by me. And that's where we've seen a lot of these sanctions come into place on companies abroad that have been trading with Russian companies. That will disappear now if these alternative digital financial assets are used as payments instead of the traditional payment form.
Now to Ireland, where the PM has confirmed the defeat of 2 referendums that would have constitutionally redefined the family makeup and as well as the role of women. Now, while officials had anticipated a yes vote on both family and care amendments, 67% of the voters cast a no ballot on the family initiative and almost 74% rejected the other option. The family proposal aimed to add the term durable relations, meaning cohabiting couples with children, to the official definition of a family, while the second suggested making the language around women in the home more neutral. Locals say that they are delighted with the result of the vote, unlike the government.
I personally think that there is a need for change, but I think that the politicians themselves didn't come out and explain why this was the reason for that there was a reason to change the constitution.
I was delighted people had the common sense to realise it was badly worded and badly run as a campaign. It didn't deserve to get through. While I thought that the Second Amendment proposal, the Care Amendment, I was also delighted it was defeated, because I don't think it did enough for people care in the community.
They wanted people just to care for people at home, whereas families cannot just care for people at home. We need support.
Hey, buddy.
They need the support of the government, and they need support overall in their lives. So we're happy that no.
Hey, Doc, did you see that post office?
We talked to Pastor Martin Semper, who's a Ugandan pro-family leader, and he says the referendum results send a clear message to European
The
politicians.
jump box in front of the post office, they
think that there is clearly
didn't clean it out and they flowed over.
between the people and the Prime
other
Minister.
people were.
There is a very wide gap in understanding basic gender, understanding what
Could have
makes
stole
a man
votes
and
or
what
anything
makes
like
a
that.
woman.
I think it was California, and I think that's where he's from. I don't know, but he was there. They told the guy in the post office like 3 or 4 times that it was overflowing. And they never. It was one the blues. Box, whatever it was. The cops were called 3 times.
Yeah, buddy. You killed a dirty dog.
Hey.
Just in, before we go, Russia has thwarted a Ukrainian attempt to launch a large-scale strike using at least 25 drones. That's according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Now, it says that air defense forces intercepted and destroyed 2 UAVs over the Moscow region. 11 more drones were shot down over the Kursk region, and another drone was downed over the Tula region. 7 drones were destroyed in the Belgorod region, with another one in the Leningrad region, and 2 more in the Oryol region. Well, many thanks for your company here on RT International. You can find up-to-the-minute updates on our website, rt.com. And that's all from me, Peter Scott, for today. But Ewan O'Neill will be here with more news at the top of the hour.
You're high.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, I didn't.
I just had to kill it.
No.
The rapid collapse.
I just had to kill a spider. It was like dangling from a random web, and my dog was about to eat it.
Saw their future differently. Great Britain and France agreed on the seizure of the Arab lands under the guise of the so-called mandate of the League of Nations. This caused particular indignation in Iraq, which was to get under the control of the British. In May 1920, unrest with claim for independence broke out. Both the Sunni and the Shia took part in it. Soon the rallies turned into a real uprising against the invaders. More than 130,000 people took up arms. Britain urgently began to transfer reinforcements to Iraq and used aircraft. British War Secretary Winston Churchill urged the use of chemical weapons against the rebels, and General Sir Aylmer Haldane ordered the destruction of any village where weapons were found. Burning a village properly takes a long time, an hour or more according to size. Haldane recalled cynically in his memoirs, the medieval cruelty paid off. The revolt was crushed. However, the British Empire had to make serious concessions. In 1921, it recognized Faisal I as the king of Iraq and gave bargaining power to representatives of the local population. The Iraqi revolt marked the beginning of the national consolidation of the country and became an important milestone on the way to final independence.
I am Scotty Nell Hughes, and on this week's 360 View, they say with age comes great wisdom, but could it also come with the risk of a world leader suffering from dementia? Meanwhile, countries around the world are dealing with major groups of displaced migrants from embattled areas.
Damn it! What are you doing?
I don't know. Putting their own economy at risk.
Man.
Let's get started.
I didn't have it prepared. You want to tell me what you had? What I had?
The median age of the current class of world leaders is 62, with the youngest known head of government being Gabriel Boric, who rules at the age of 38. Meanwhile, oddly, those countries who are considered to be more of a free society tend to elect younger leadership. But one country defies the trend and is looking to elect its next leader at the ripe age of 79 or 81. Of course, I'm talking about the United States.
Delay.
And while the United States Constitution prefaces the minimum age of 35 to be president, I guess it did not occur to James Madison, otherwise known as the father of the Constitution, there should be a maximum age as well. Now, maybe it's because the age of the men who were involved in founding America did so mainly in their 20s and 30s, and most during that time didn't even live past 60. But after the last two administrations have been plagued with gaps and stumbles, is it fair to attribute this to age? Let's bring in our panel. Steve Gill, who's a political analyst and radio host, legal and media analyst,
You better have a really good
as
hands
well
off.
as Steve Malzberg, who's a talk radio host and conservative commentator. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen.
Thanks, Scotty. You fucking asshole.
I want to start with you, Lionel, on this, because before we get to the current slate of candidates, is it fair to question the mental capabilities of the President of the United States?
Yeah, I did, but it was a low club. I know, obviously.
That is absurd.
Yeah,
age alone? Absolutely not. What's important is capacity. That's what the 25th Amendment is for. Look, we have a guy in Pennsylvania right now, a senator, John Fetterman, who is theoretically chronologically.
Yeah, but I do that sometimes
young,
just to get.
But he's walking around yelling, "Who ordered the veal cutlet?" So if you want to look at age, Mick Jagger's in his 80s. Alan Dershowitz is 85. This doesn't make any sense. We're close, but it's not about age.
You always have some kind of draw,
let's
brother.
talk about immaturity. And by the way,
I'm drawing
you also
you.
take into account mental ability, depression, drinking, abuse of drugs.
Turn my fucking phone
Let me just say
against
something
the-
very quickly. I don't want anybody coming along with a new way to get rid of elected officials.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Idea that we have to make sure they are, mentally competent, because one man's competence is another man's elimination unfairly and unconstitutionally.
Well, that's funny, because Steve Malzberg, Lionel brings up maturity. I think maturity is not a factor that elects people to Congress if you look at our current slate. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that on the other end of the scale. Yeah, but if we're talking about an age limit as opposed to a minimum or mature when you get in. Look, I always say when I talk about Joe Biden and his total incompetency, his inability to leave a stage and know where he's going, or to say goodbye, or to shake a hand, or anything that is involved with falling down. God bless him. It's not his fault that he's old and he's aging as he's aging. Donald Trump, on the other hand, for one, more gracefully. I didn't get any on me. In their 70s, and, some in their 80s that could have a conversation, that know what they're doing. So it all depends on the person. But the fact that, that Joe Biden at this point says he's going to run again and be the nominee, and that's
two more spades would have came out.
I blame his family. To me, it's elder abuse. It's country abuse, but it's elder abuse. let this guy enjoy the rest of his life. Get him out of here and let him go sit in Delaware on the beach and look at, whatever he looks at. I don't want to say.
Well, Steve, go out there. Do you think people are politically weaponizing age only to hurt their opposition?
I think only in this particular case. I don't think it's really about a number as much as it's about his competency. This is a guy who walks around shuffling like I used to do when my kids were young, and there'd be Legos strewn all over the living room floor, and I'm walking around in the dark of night, can't see, and I'm trying to shuffle around so I don't step on Legos. That's how he walks. It's his competency that is the problem. Worse than that, it's his policies that are the problem. And I think sometimes his age and the infirmities distract from the fact that his policies are even worse than his incapacity to govern.
I almost feel like they're using it as an excuse. Well, he's allowed, to a certain extent, it's the reverse.
I'm drawing you.
But I do want to look at specifics, because looking at old footage of both Joe Biden as a senator, or even when he debated Paul Ryan, you can tell there is a significant change to the man being guided by the First Lady, who's tripping down the stairs and making a comment.
Where's Deborah? I just had a picture taken with her. That's probably why she left. No, all kidding aside.
Wow.
She couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up. And she has, she fights very hard for the people's district, and she's up in Washington right now.
You cannot negate. You've got Donald Trump, who was well-spoken and eloquent on his appearance on Oprah in 1988, compared to today, when it's stabbed. And depending on the situation, the company kind of holds their breath when he goes off the telephone.
By the way, they never report the crowd.
Hey, buddy.
Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley. They destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people.
Should we be concerned about the two front runners, and if they are physically and mentally able to handle their role because of, and we said competency, but their age? Malsberg.
Well, I think Donald Trump is, always gone off the teleprompter. I remember when he bought the USFL team in the 80s when I first met him, and he was going off the teleprompter then. Look, the left in the media is making an issue now. Every time Donald Trump slips up verbally in the slightest bit, and he has mistakenly said this or that, they say, who's the one with dementia? Oh, who's incompetent? But it's like this compared to the height of the Empire State Building when you compare Trump to Joe Biden. And look, physically and mentally, Joe Biden is incapable of handling the job, again, because of his age. Now, you talk about competency.
Why?
Kamala Harris, in my view, is incapable of handling the job because of her mental capacity. There's something going on there. So there's various reasons for mental incapacity or not having the ability to carry out the position. But in the case of age, Biden is disqualified. Trump, not yet.
Not yet. Lionel, though, you look at the 25th Amendment, I think you were the one that brought it up. Is this not a reason why we have in place these type of, like, I say they're like emergency exits when you get yourself in that situation? Do you ever partake that we could use something like that? I think it is the 25th Amendment to get someone like Joe Biden out of office.
This scares me. Joe Biden was elected. There are people who like him, with all due respect. With the exception of my good friend Steve, my kid, of course. Who the hell are we to talk about who's competent or not? Let's face it, we don't like Joe Biden. But if it was Donald Trump, we'd say, well, that's just the way he is. Look, during a George W. Bush, he was talking about putting food on your family, and he didn't know what he was saying. And he thought he had Wernicke's area encephalopathy. They thought he was a dry drunk. It was years of. We did it then. There was a book called Bush on the Couch. Listen, I am not going to hold out for the next Niels Bohr to be the president. But there comes a point when we've got to be very, very careful. And you've got to ask yourself, did we jump in during Woodrow Wilson after the multiple strokes? Did we jump in when Jack Kennedy was addicted to methamphetamine or whatever it was? When he had Addison syndrome? When Ike had multiple heart attacks? We've got to be really, really careful. And let me just tell you one thing. If the Republican Party doesn't win against this sock puppet, Okay, let me just say this. It will be, they better win. I could put up a potted plant and beat him in a debate. And let me also tell you something. The way we're learning from the other night and from whatever, this MAGA GOP tidal wave, it's not there. So the question of sanity that I want to talk about is not Joe Biden's, but the American electorate. What the hell is going on here? What will it take? Does this man have to flatline? Ask most Democrats, and they'll say, "Oh, you know, he's okay." I think it's a testament about us. I think we're the ones who need help. We're the ones who need
Let me disagree just a bit, Lionel. I think the reason we didn't see this same kind of discussion when it came to Kennedy and the others, we didn't have 24-hour news channels. We didn't have video coverage 24 hours a day on these guys, where every little gap. And if you're having a camera following you around 24 hours a day, you're 25 years old, you're going to muddle your words at some point. But that's not going to make news like it is when you're a president.
That was a joke. That's a great point. Look at FDR. FDR made a joke. Anybody who dares mention the polio, you'll never travel with him again. And he was one of the most, eloquent and perfect presidents. That's a great point.
And the media didn't cover it. And the media didn't cover his info.
But Lionel,
the others.
The poll.
If I would have won
just
that,
quickly, the polls show that the public, almost 70%. The recent one I just talked about, thinks that Joe Biden doesn't have the physical strength and mental capability and stamina to be president of the United States. So the American public believes that.
But here's the thing: is this smart? And I'll let you, Lionel, cover this. Is this a smart route for either party to go into, considering senior citizens are probably one of the that come out on election day? I mean, they're going to take it personal. If you're going against somebody that they like just because of their age, or they say they're going to take that personal. Lionel.
Steve brings up a good point. 70% of the population thinks that Joe Biden is basically non-compos mentis. Yet 5% of the people vote. So what I'm going to say is, we talk about this as though there's this.
I'll come in because it's your last name.
Out of his mind. Listen, let me go back. At the height
Don't come in my hand,
when he got his 200 million votes, Joe Biden was talking about this mythical character named Corn Pop and his blonde hair and the wig.
All 120 of this.
And that didn't do it. And that's when he was at his
Who fight for a knockout?
Okay, but Lionel, you and I know that. Scotty knows that. Steve knows that. But you know what? The American public doesn't, because the media, the regular media that the regular public and the majority is exposed to, they didn't tell you that. They didn't tell you
cards,
that
turning in river
Biden was forced out of the campaign for lying,
for
plagiarizing, for cheating about in law school. They didn't tell you any of that.
Oh, well,
you and I know that. Scotty knows that. The panel knows that. But the people don't.
But to Steve's point, there's been a turning of the page, I think, in the media where they weren't talking about his age just a few months ago or a few weeks ago. All of a sudden, it's like the spigot's been turned on, and all of a sudden, Joe's age is being talked about by Democrats and by his media allies. They've decided he needs to go because they don't think he can win against Donald Trump.
Okay, listen, pal. I'm
kidding.
Oh, no, wait, he is not kidding him, but we're going to continue this conversation. I can tell you why. Because I'm going to keep our panel right here, because after the break, we're going to look at the recent run on the border and debate if the influx of immigrants should actually be considered a boost, or is it really a drain on the economy? Stick around.
Raise it, buddy. Raise it. Raise it. Raise it. Raise it. Oh, yeah. Oop. See, now you're gonna get a plushie. You get another heart, buddy. I'm just saying the best hand.
Go ahead, finish it. Go ahead.
Two 5'6" or 3'5", 5'8".
Welcome back. I'm Sky. Now you are watching the 360 View. Now, legal border crossings seem to be a major issue most developed countries around the globe are now facing. This is causing much debate amongst citizens who want to have compassion for those seeking a safe place. However, with the growing economic strain put on the communities, The impact, some say, is turning from a mission of aid to a complete crisis. Sadly, many of the countries facing an immigration crisis in their own homeland are those causing the conflict or the bad environment driving the migration in another. Something about this doesn't seem right. And the politicians in charge of these countries have turned the issue into a very valuable talking point to rally their own base. Meanwhile, no political side wants to see a solution be implemented as the problem serves their own selfish purposes. But with more than 10.2 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States alone currently, proponents for a pathway to citizenship say it would add close to $1.7 trillion to the American economy if granted. However, there's no doubt communities are feeling an economic pinch and in some cases strangled by the influx of illegals who are now looking to the government and really the taxpayers for housing, healthcare, education, and more. So what is the answer? Well, let's bring in our panel. Political analyst and radio host Steve Gill, legal and media analyst Lionel, and conservative commentator and talk radio host Steve Malzberg. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know this seems like a simple question, but it's really not when you look at the overall economy. So Steve Gill,
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips, bruised knees. I'm addicted to her, need her touching me, cause she got a bad little waist. And we tearing down this place off the liquor that we chase. Got some egos to the face, baby, I don't need no space. Coming closer for a taste, and I'll show you how I make everything just fade away. Cause she's like sex, drugs, cocaine, body so insane. Jealous of the clothing that she wears up on that tight frame. All game, no shame, baby came here to play. I feel like an addict cause she's sex, drugs, cocaine. Got a fine little body and her mind's kinda naughty. They say that once you taste it, you cannot replace it. She could get you high, all the dopamine inside triggers fast once she's naked. Her body's a creation. They say the devil made her for his entertainment, but even he couldn't learn how to contain it. Her high heels make a damn good statement. There is no replacement, a body by Satan. Cause she got a bad little waist, and we tearing down this place off the liquor that we chase. Got some egos to the face, baby, I don't need no space. Coming closer for a taste, and I'll show you how I make everything just fade away. Cause she's like sex, drugs, cocaine, body so insane. Jealous of the clothing that she wears up on a tight frame. All game, no shame, baby came here to play. I feel like an addict cause she's sex, drugs, cocaine.